and welcome to the Korum Fishing Clinic. I'm here today in the beautiful Shropshire countryside to meet up with two of the best specimen anglers in the country. And today we're going to talk about the wonderful, iconic coarse fish, the Crucian. Well, you join me here with none other than the Northwest maestro, Gary Knowles. Now, Gary, tell us a little bit about where we are today and why you're here.
Well, this is Sutton Fishery. It's run by my mate Ed Matthews. It's a beautiful water set in the Shropshire countryside. It's predominantly run as a carp fishery, but Ed had the foresight several years ago to stock some fingerling crucians, and they've grown on to.
And how big are they now? I know you've caught some nice ones.
Yeah. I've been quite fortunate. I've had them up to £3.14, £3.13, £3.12. I've had some really nice fish for it, and they are pristine fish as well. They're lovely looking fish.
So for a fish of that size, it's not like, you know, is it your standard traditional style of Crucian fishing, or has it evolved?
It's certainly evolved. I do occasionally float fish for them. We've had fish float fishing for them, but it's much more of a specimen approach now, Matt. We use small method feeders, which I'll show you two or three later.
Yeah.
Different types I use in different situations. Small hoot links, bolt rigs, little tiny boilies or pieces of corn, that kind of thing. And it's a bit more of a bait and weight approach.
Okay. As you can see, it's quite technical now, modern Crucian fishing. So let's go through some of the tactics, some of the baits.
Yeah, okay.
And first, let's talk a little bit about the swim that Gary's in, because this, as a carp angler, this isn't the first choice swim that I'd have been in today, but for the Crucians,
yeah,
it looks pretty good.
So the thing is that one thing I've picked up about in my Crucian fishing is that they do follow a wind, and especially a new wind, a
like
fresh wind. Just like a king carp or common carp, whatever we call them. But yeah, they do certainly follow a wind. So the days before I come fishing, I'll always check the weather report, see the wind direction and everything. I got here last night and the wind was pushing down to this shallow end of the lake. Unfortunately, we've got quite a bright day, pressure, as you can see, and there are some snaggier areas over there where the Crucians will hide under the snags and the roots and everything.
They like cover.
Oh, they love cover. They absolutely love cover. Thick weed bed, roots, all those kind of things. They'll tuck under into the shade. But to me, the lure of the wind pushing down here swung it for me. So that's why I came down here last night.
Brilliant.
I'll always follow wind.
Yeah.
And then then you've also got, you always have this kind of swim within a swim, don't you? So it's not just straight out and you're dropping it one rod length out or two rod length out. I'm actually fishing with three rods, and I'm fishing three totally different spots within the same swim. Okay. So kind of edging your bets. I've got one tucked right in down the margins here under these beech trees. I've got one which is just two rod lengths out on a quite a plain plateau area, which tends to pick up fish which are moving, I think, between areas. And then to the right over here, which we'll maybe show you later, there's a nice bay which goes out with a small point with an alder tree at the top of it, and they do tuck into this bay as well. So I've got me bets edged here.
So Crucians have obviously got certain kinds of habits. Let's talk to my mate Ed Matthews about the Crucian carp itself and what makes it so special.
Right guys, this is a typical example of a Crucian carp, a true bred Crucian carp. No hybridisation in it or anything. There's a lot of hybrids knocking about today with, you know, the influx of F1s and that in commercial fisheries. But this is a true one, and you can tell that because it's got a convex dorsal fin. They're quite pronounced and long like that. They've also got no barbels whatsoever. And typically, Crucians have a scale count of 32 to 34 scales. They can have a bit either way, but a typical 100% Crucian will have that scale count and the other features I've looked at.
Well, Gary, these look a bit tasty.
Yes, that's a pineapple oozing boiler. I think it's probably fair to say that when I first go onto a Crucian water, I'll start with a really bright a visual bait like this with a really strong smell and go for a real quick hit on them. So that's Tutti Frutti and this is Pineapple, two really great baits to start with.
And these are the kind of boilies that are oozing off, you know, loads of
Yeah,
colour and stuff in the
absolutely,
water.
it's the oozing boilers, so it's constant. If you get one of those and just drop in a little glass of water, you'll see the colour and well, you won't see the flavour, but the colour gives the indication of what's coming out of the boiler. And they're really good, and they fish for hours. They actually fish for hours, and they constantly,
So
stuff coming off it.
if somebody's going to a water for the first time to try and catch a crucian, that's a good place to start.
I would start with either the Pineapple, definitely the Pineapple, or the Tutti Frutti. That would be my go-to, definitely.
What about for more pressured fish? You know, once you've given them a bit of a clumping on the yellows and
they do start to wisen up a little bit, and they do start backing off bright baits. In that case, what I'll do is I'll move on to these. Still the same product. They're using type boiler, and we've got a bloodworm fish meal here, and we've got a krill one, and it's just darker. It's a bit more natural. You know, on a water like this, as I said before, it's predominantly run as a carp water, so they're used to eating pellets and dark baits. Yeah, you can see it coming out onto your hands, and that's exactly what it does into the water as well.
Yeah. So basically, these are like a big carp hook bait, but a micro version to go in. You know, crucians haven't got a small mouth.
Absolutely. And another thing around that, which I'll show you later when I show you my rigs. I have really short hairs when I fish these, so much so that the boilie is always sat on the bend of the hook. It's almost like there's no hair on it, and I think that's definitely caught me a lot more fish than with a traditional hair.
It's a great tip for you if you're trying crucians for the first time. Short hair and a little very smelly boilie.
Yeah.
So Gary, what have we got for lunch?
Yeah, compared to Ed's cooking, that's pretty good, to be honest with you, mate.
So these are your go-to baits for crucian.
Yeah. I've already spoke about the baits that we use on the hook, but these are the baits that I use to feed. Sometimes on the hook as well. But these are the ones I use to feed. So we have casters. I don't think there's a fish that swims that doesn't love casters. I use these for everything. They're really good bait. So I'll feed plenty of casters. As you can see, some red maggots.
Very active.
Some red maggots. But because they're so active, I also like to use some dead maggots as well. Some dead red maggots as well. And then we've got some 2 milli pellets. I use 2 milli because I don't like feeding them too much. You know, make them get preoccupied. Hungry, yeah. So we've got some 4 milli pellets here. Now if you have like that amount of 4 milli pellets, they can get rid of in a minute or so.
Yeah.
If you have the same amount, same weight if you like, in 2 millis, it's going to keep them there for 2 or 3 times as long. They're going to be in your swim for that duration.
Is that really important with crucians?
Yeah, I think so. We've on this water in particular, we've tried baiting little spots under the trees, and you see it, you can observe it. They'll come and they'll just be there they'll go down your bait, pick, and then they've gone. So the idea is if you've got lots of small particles, it'll keep them there for longer, and of course that gives you a much higher percentage chance of nailing one on your hook bait.
And with the casters, do you think there's a crunch factor?
Oh yeah. I think I know you yourself have told me in the past about when you're carp fishing, they just seem to love it, don't they? It's that crunch, and then suddenly all the goodness, all the nutrition, everything is straight down. And I think they like crunching them on the pharyngeal teeth, back, And the 4 milli pellets, if I'm honest, I don't use them that much, but these are high oil content, and I'll just put 2 or 3 of these in sometimes. Literally, just sometimes
just a pinch.
Just so you hear the plop, and it just goes in just like that, just to mix it up, so they don't get preoccupied on one or another. Just keep them changing between what they're pecking around and picking up at.
So I can imagine a crucian baited area is actually quite sparse. It's not a heavy baiting technique.
No. It's not just sparse. It's actually quite tight as well. I wouldn't go more than a dustbin lid, and even then, that's probably a bit big for what I'd like to do. Especially if you're fishing. It's easier if you're fishing close to a margin, because you can set like a foot off that particular leaf and literally bait to that leaf and drop your feeder in on that leaf, and you're right on it. A bit like a pole angler, dropping his pot in and getting that accuracy. If you're fishing in open water, what I tend to do then is clip up and just put a little piece of marker braid. So usual stuff, you know, the far bank feature, keep it in line. But every time you drop it in, that same feeder's going down and going down and going down into the same place.
So now we know the baits for crucians. Let's have a look at the feeders that you use, because I know you say you use a few different types.
Yeah, I use
depending
different
on the
ones,
situation.
different ones for different circumstances and whether they're having it or not. So yeah, I'll talk you through the feeders now, Matt. Okay, so here's a selection of the feeders that I use when crucian fishing. We've got a couple of grub feeders here. This is the size I do like to use, certainly in summer, this time of year. It's a really nice little small maggot feeder. That's great for fishing maggot casters on the hook, that one. This is a Preston's Method feeder. I like this one because it's got a gap in the middle here where the bait goes, and I'll show you that in a minute. How the bait goes on there and how it sits nicely on that. This is the Dura feeder. Now I'll always use this one if I'm casting a little bit further. The Dura feeder's got this shield here that on impact it ensures that all your feed stays on the hook and doesn't disperse when you're having a longer cast. So with this one, obviously you're not casting as far, you don't really need that shield. And then when the fish are really having it and getting their heads down, this is the one that I really like. It's called an easy feeder. It's called an easy feeder for obvious reasons. You can feed anything in it easily. Sticky pellets, just press it in. Method mix, anything goes in there. Turn your bait over, just have it in that. And this, you can get a mixture of baits out there. You can get dead maggots out there, pellets, a feed. So each one, different circumstance, but each one really does have its use in crucian fishing. Okay, so I've already talked you through the hook baits I use and the loose fade that I put in. Some people might think that the method mix is just pretty bog standard and can't be changed and can't be improved, but it can. And I'll just show you a very quick little tip to make sure you get your method mix just right. To start with, I use the standard match method mix. I think it's good enough for all the guys who fish for Preston Innovations. It's good enough for me. I've caught loads and loads of fish on that. I don't mix it up with anything else. I use it straight as it is, straight out of the packet there. So you pour it into your tub, straight into the tub here. Add water, but then what I always do, excuse me, what I always do is riddle it. It's vitally important. This nice little EVA riddle and bucket comes together. All you do is gently rub it through with your hands like this. It makes sure there's no lumps in there, no big pieces, because you don't want the fish to be picking up a nice big chunk of food. You want this to almost cloud and make it loads and loads of flavours, loads and loads of smells, stuff that, like we've mentioned before, which will keep the fish in your swim, but not that much food. Now if you look at that now and you see how fine that is, that's a really good mix, and a nice indicator if you got your mix right. One squeeze of your hand like that should be good, and then it should just disappear straight back into dust. Now having riddled it, it will mean it stays on your method feeder when you use the mould much better, and it gives the right consistency of feed when it's out there in your swim.
So Gary, for this session you've opted for what weight is that? It's a small...
Yeah, it's 30 gram. It's 30 gram. You've got quite a small hook, so you don't want a particular heavy feeder bouncing around on its lip. You've got quite a fine hook and quite a fine hook link, so it could shake it out. So yeah, quite small, 30 grams.
Can you just run me through how you load the feeder for crucians? Do you bury the hook bait or do you have it exposed?
Yeah, well, it's a kind of hybrid between them both, to be honest with you. It's kind of semi-buried, but it's visible, if you like. So okay. You'll drop it into the bottom of the mould. I always use a mould. It just gets you that consistency. Yeah. Just gently.
Put a little bit of ground bait.
Just a little bit. Yeah. Press it down so that it's quite not too compact, to be honest, because these are crucians. Yeah. These are crucians, and they can be quite, delicate in the ways. The second layer, now,
pat that down as well.
Bit firmer.
So I suppose with the match guys, they'd be doing this in a hurry. They're trying to get the rods in and out. Whereas you're going to be a lot more particular with a lot more finesse.
Yeah. I'm not.
It's actually a cute fish.
We're not F1 in here, are we? We're not cast. We're trying to, like you said, trying to get one that's got a little bit more cagey than that. Then it's really simple. Just turn it round. Obviously, there's a series of moulds that fits different size feeders. Yep. You just make sure you get the right one. I think they come in packs, so you can get the same one as well. Anyway, turn it over.
Push a little button on the back.
and that's a little tip for you. If you say then 2 pushes like that, 2 pushes. If it doesn't drop out in 2 pushes, you've got your mix wrong.
Okay.
If you're pushing and pushing and pushing,
that's where
then
the
it's too
riddling of the
stodgy.
groundbait makes a big difference.
Exactly. And now
So
if
now
you
I
look,
can just see
yeah,
the boilie there.
absolutely. So you know it's not down. You know the kind of bars that's on the feeder.
Yeah.
It's not in and amongst them. It's not tangled
And
up
your
with them.
hook's clean as
You
well, I
can
can
see
see
the
that.
hook. You see that hook there on
Yeah.
top. You can see it very clean, like you say. That as soon as it hits the water, it's got enough solidity around it so it won't break on impact. It's only a short cast for this one. Then it starts breaking down. As it breaks down, of course, this starts dropping off it. What's on top of it?
Yeah.
Perfectly presented bait. You'll pick it up, the hook's exposed, pull against the feeder, and hopefully we've got a crucian in the net.
What crucian could resist? So you're all rigged up and ready to go, Gary. What about the gear you're using? What sort of kit do you need for this style of fishing?
It's quite straightforward and probably what you'd call more traditional, to be honest with you. It's called the all-rounder rod, the Korum all-rounder rod. It's 11 foot, 1.25, 1.25 pound in old language test curve. Ideal. It's just you don't want to be using too heavy a rod. You don't want to be using a carp rod, you know, £2, £2.5 when you're fishing with small loops, as we mentioned before.
Rod.
Yeah, it is. That's exactly what it's like. And 11 foot makes it nice if you're just dropping one in the margins as well. You know, we're not casting to the distance. It's nice, cork handle, quite a slim blanks, everything. It's nice. And then this
Team
is
that with a free spool reel.
yeah. We put a free spool reel on because some of these big crucian do hit and go. You know,
You get
and
a proper bite.
oh, you get a proper a run off these crucians, and of course there's some big carp in here as well, so you don't want them to be cracking off and leaving hooks in them. So the bait run is really good. It's an ideal size reel. It's a 3,500. It's called a shadow. It's got a bait runner facility. It's great for this kind of fishing. I'll tell you where else you could use it. You know, if you're fishing a commercial and the guys are fishing with a float, exactly, you're fishing with a float rod and you put one down the side with your method on or something like that, just flick this free spool on, and of course, yeah, if something big grabs it, then your rod isn't going in. But it's ideal for this kind of fishing, and £6 mono. There you go. Quite simple. I'll
leave you to get it in.
Okay.
See if we can get a bite.
See if we can drop it out.
One of the things I get asked a lot is what makes a good crucian swim and where to head on a fishery when you're targeting crucians. There's a couple of things that are obvious, such as marginal features, reeds, bushes, but other things to look out for silt beds. They love burying their heads in the silt, especially when you get a few particles on the bottom and you can watch them fizz and that. Your margins, you tend to come alive at night, I find, especially if there's a lot of open water. They creep into the margins and come into the shallow water, that last thing at night. The other thing, weed beds. They love hanging around weed beds, but that said, don't rule anything out. I've caught my fair share of crucians fishing in open water, providing the weather's right and the conditions are good, especially when you get a warm, fresh wind. They really like to move on it. So yeah, look for any sort of features and they love hanging around them. When you get the sun coming out like we have on today, they tend to get tucked underneath snags and in bushes and things. So really get in amongst the vegetation, have a look through the snags, and sometimes if the water's clear enough, you can physically see them sitting in the snags. They're not against moving twigs and rubbish and stuff out the way to feed either. So don't be put off by branches and twigs and stuff in the margins, because they're like little bulldozers. They go around moving twigs and branches and searching for bugs and bait and stuff. So really don't rule anything out. Get out and about, look in the bushes, bait a few spots, look for those telltale crucian bubbles that come up, those little pin bubbles, and give it a go.
Well, mate, just when we thought it was too bright, too sunny, too much high pressure, we get a lovely one for the cameras.
Yeah, in the middle of the day as well, just when we least expecting it. Not the biggest I've had from here, or the prettiest, had to be said, bit of a warrior, but he's certainly over £2.
Yeah, still a really impressive fish.
Yeah. I don't think there's any need to stress him any further by weighing him, do you?
No,
He's nowhere near.
What did you catch him on, Gary?
Tutti Frutti, the oozing boilie again, on the method feeder.
Yeah, I think I can see a bit of orange on his lips.
Yeah, you can, yeah. So, yeah, the results. one of the first fish that, certainly in my childhood, that people used to target from
Yeah.
farm ponds, and it seems funny now, the total other end of the spectrum, fishing for them in, you know, in real selective specialist methods. So anyway, I hope you've learned a lot from today and picked up a few tips. I think it's great to share the love of this sport, isn't it, with the public, and there we go.
What a magnificent fish. Well done, Gary.
Beautiful. Cheers, mate. Thank you. Let's get him back.